Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to also contribute to this, the second reading of the Financial Services Providers Pre-Implementation Adjustments Bill. Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to speak to this bill, and I commend the Minister Simon Power for the work that he's done in moving this bill to the House. It is, as the last speaker referred to, a bill that amends two different bills, and they are the Financial Advisors Act 2008 and the Financial Services Providers Act 2008, which was introduced under the last government. Sir, the work done by the committee, as has already been stated, was quite extensive, and I thank my fellow committee members for the collaborative way that we work towards getting the bill to this point. Also want to acknowledge quickly the officials who also worked tirelessly behind the scenes, getting the advice ready at short notice, often working weekends and late into the night in order for us to get this quick turnaround in the bill. So I salute you, the officials. As has already been stated, the financial services sector plays an important role for businesses to raise capital. And this legislation is really partly a response to protecting unsophisticated investors. These were the investors, sir, that were affected by the collapse of over 30 finance companies in the past 4 years. And there are many out there that know of or are related to or have friends that were affected by these collapses, and so this bill goes a long way to addressing some of the issues, particularly around financial advisors and the advice that they give. But sir, let's be clear though, what this bill does not do, it does not regulate risk. It does not regulate risk. And risk is important because, as many of you will know, many people out there will know, that with risk comes return, and there is a risk-return trade-off. So the government is not into regulating risk, but regulating those that operate within capital markets. So this bill, sir, balances the regulation of advisors who provide financial advice, but it also bears in mind that compliance, regulation, red tape sometimes stifles commerce and the transactional nature of capital markets. So it's that fine balance is what we had to look at when we went through each of the clauses of this bill. Now, the Commerce Committee has recommended a number of amendments to strengthen the provisions of both acts. I will not go into all of those with any detail, but just suffice to say that the bill does narrow the scope of the Financial Advisors Act to apply to only those persons who provide financial advisor services in the ordinary course of business, and that is a particular qualification that's important, in the ordinary course of business, and to persons who provide advice in the course of another financial service. What it does, sir, it does provide for a carve-out and excludes financial advice that is provided incidentally to other services. So we heard a number of submissions during the Select Committee process around those that provide some form of financial advice that's incidental to the main provisions of the businesses and organisations that were represented. And these, of course, include the Citizens Advice Bureau, lawyers, accountants, business advisors, investment bankers. There are a whole raft of organisations and businesses that do provide advice in which financial advice is not core to their business. So this regime really focuses on those services which are generally understood to be financial advisors. And the advice that we looked at in terms of clarifying financial advice, the advice is on the procedure for acquiring and disposing of financial products will not be caught by this piece of legislation. And we also looked at the types of advice that lead to broad statements about classes of products, such as, for example, KiwiSaver is a good product. Statements like that made by made by customer service agents at retail banks will be outside the scope of this Act. We also looked at the definition of financial planning services and made a clarification around what those financial planning services will entail. And these will no doubt be discussed during the committee stage of this process. So what is most important is that advisors will still be able to voluntarily become authorised financial advisors even when those advisors are not compelled to under this piece of legislation. So what this bill also does is that it provides a more flexible regime by adding a number of regulation-making powers for the Securities Commission. And the Commission can currently provide limited exemptions from financial advisor obligations, but it is expected to focus on exemptions for classes of persons for whom the cost of compliance with certain obligations would be unreasonable or unjustified. And that's a particularly important point, sir, because this piece of legislation is not designed to capture those that obviously aren't in the business of providing financial advice, but also those that obviously can't afford to be part of the regime. And we heard some very good submissions from various credit unions and various other businesses that whose primary focus in terms of the service provided is not around providing financial advice. So I conclude by just saying that the wholesale carve-out within the statute was a difficult process and a difficult question, and the committee actually were torn in many ways in considering those that should be included in the carve-out and those that should be excluded. But I think in the final analysis, I think we worked together well as a team with the officials and also with the industry. And we constantly were in touch with various players within the industry who provided us with some very good advice. So, sir, I support this in its second reading.